staff. I actually supervise the nurses, that supervise and support the nurses. The safety, of course, is one of them. Student services, we do that through prevention and support. So my role here is to be here with my teammates here and support them and spend some time with them. They invite me to come out and see the great work that they're doing to make our communities and schools safe. If you give your kids to us, you expect us to take care of them, so this is how we do that. We put these plans in place so that we can collaborate, communicate, and support schools when crises do occur. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to being a part of the program today. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And I'll just segue before I get into introduction about some of the things that Mr. Rolo said. Some of the things that we really want to stress, collaboration, big time collaboration. Have I got principals in here? Any principals in here yet? How about APs? Okay, APs. First year APs? Okay. I know your SRO is not a first year SRO. Okay. But sometimes we talk about that collaboration, and that's huge. We'll talk about that as we go further and further. That collaboration between educators and law enforcement is big. It's a team thing. It's not one against the other. And I always say sometimes it's difficult for a first year SRO and maybe a first year AP to get along, to understand and collaborate. You know what? You know what law enforcement people have? Mike, tell them what law enforcement people say.
They'll keep telling me that we got ego.
And you know what? They have to have egos to do their job right. But sometimes they have to be in charge. Who the administrators have? And you know what? They have to. So until that light clicks, that we're all trying to accomplish the same thing, and that's to make schools safe so students can learn. That collaboration is big, okay? So collaboration, communication, principals aren't in here, but I'm going to tell you, we tell them, principals can't do this alone anymore, okay? And so collaboration, communication, we talk about discipline. Everybody says, oh, you people from the state don't want us to discipline them anymore, you want us to love them and hug. Yeah, all that stuff, but listen, what we talk about today has nothing to do with the discipline that little Johnny, we're going to pick on little Johnny much, little Johnny received. Whatever the code of conduct at Midfield City Schools calls for, that's still what little Johnny receives. What we talk about is making little Johnny safer and making the rest of your school safer. Okay? Because that's the first thing that we want to talk about all the time. So we talk about collaboration, we talk about communication, we talk about discipline, we talk about documentation. Document. We'll bring up some things today, examples where people didn't document like they were supposed to, and now they're in trouble about it. Okay? I tell, especially assistant principals, listen, let me back up and give you my introduction, okay, because you need to know this. I'm a former teacher coach, assistant principal, and then I was in Jefferson County in student services at the board for about 7 years before I was doing this, okay? I need you to know that. The reason I think that's important is because I used to hate for somebody to come in and tell me what to do that never did sit in my seat. I've been there. Okay. I was a language arts teacher, assistant principal, so I know that. My wife, as I mentioned to somebody, is director of Amsty UAB, former assistant principal, former science teacher. We had some interesting discussions, okay, because it was always one of those things where she'd come home, when she was assistant principal, and she'd say, guess what I happened to say? You'll never believe it. And I'd say, I can stop that, okay? So that's always those kind of things. And I say that to make you understand that not only have I been there, but I understand the importance of C&I, right? Curriculum instruction. We hear that curriculum instruction all the time. We know that's what drives the school. We know that's what we're judged on, okay? But I tell people every day, if your kids don't feel safe, you can throw that curriculum instruction out the door. All of those things, those buzzwords that we use for curriculum instruction that I've heard you've heard at all lots of different conferences and things, those buzzwords are the same things that we use for school safety. Data-driven, research-based, best practices, all those things are the same with school safety. Okay? Has your teaching and learning evolved and changed in the last 3 or 4 years? Absolutely, it has to be. The same with school safety. Unfortunately, with school safety, we have to change when an incident happens that says we can do things better. And the way we do things better is to change it this way. A lot of our presentation this morning is going to have to do with history. First part of it's a lot of history because it's important to know why we change and do what we do now. Okay? So we'll talk a long time about some Mike and I first started school safety about 20-something years ago. When, and Mike and I, as you saw, we're both involved with TASRO. We're non-paid board members of TASRO, so you'll get lots of TASRO commercials, but because it's a big thing, okay? Now, anybody been to TASRO? Okay. Ms. Matthews, tell them a little bit about TASRO.
Tasbro,
I did, I liked it.
they work with the safety, we do like monthly trainings. It's composed of SROs and other,
Yeah, correction, sorry,
correction officers.
probation, all kinds of.
Officers, they all come together and they work with the schools to get some collaboration on, some different safety things. They talk about the cyber safety, even the Jamar T. Williams, Aries Law, all like this stuff, all of it is like wrapped up into one.
And we talked a lot about school safety. TASRO is the first full week of June is when the conference is. But we talk a lot about school safety, but it's involved in all kinds of things. It's not just law enforcement. I tell people the first one I went to, first TASRO I went to was about 21 years ago. It was in a back room in live days. Anybody know what live days is? So 33 of us, 35 of us, 3 of us were educators, the other 32 were law enforcement. Tell you how that's changed and evolved this past year, and now we're at the Wharf Conference Center right over the bridge there. There were 815, and about 60% of those being law enforcement, the other 40% being educators. So it really has grown. As a matter of fact, TASRO last year was the biggest state-sponsored conference in the country. Okay, big time collaboration. A lot of other states. I'll just go ahead and tell you this: lots of times and by the way, congratulations, because we got the news the other day that Alabama's not at the bottom, right? Okay, but I'll tell you, we always hear about Alabama being at the bottom, Mississippi. One thing you don't hear is Alabama's usually ranked in the top 5 when it comes to school safety. The reason you don't hear that is because the things that we do that are proactive. Okay? When they look at statistics, when they look at all of the incidents that happen and that are prevented, Alabama's ranks real high because we do things. And we'll talk about some of those things now today. But TASRO is an important thing. Yes, anybody know what TASRO stands for? You got it there. What does it say? It stands for the Alabama Association of School Resource Officers. And I always say, yes, we use the, because if we didn't, it'd be ASRO, and that just doesn't sound near as good. And so we use that. So I would encourage you, we're going to talk, I was talking about documentation. Assistant principals, and when I say documentation, document. Who does that help? It helps you, everybody, but it helps you. If little Johnny's walking down the hall and you've heard something about little Johnny and you're out there monitoring in between classes and Johnny walks by and you just say, Johnny, I don't like what I'm hearing. You better straighten up. When you get back to your office, pull up STI information now, policy, whatever it is today, okay? Pull that up and pull up little Johnny and click on Administrator Student Conference, because that's what you just had. Okay? Now, if you don't do that, and little Johnny gets on your nerves and about the 5th or 6th time it keeps happening and you've had all you can stand, and you decide to do something about it, and you have made documentation of it, and you call Mama, how many times has it happened? None, except that one that you're calling on. But if you've done it every time, and Mama says, you ain't called me, no ma'am, but I talked to Johnny, and it is time-stamped on your computer that you can't lie about. You understand? That kind of saves you. So be sure you document everything. And we talk about stakeholders, all stakeholders, knowing that. We've got some leaders in here. We don't have principal assistant. Do y'all have, all of you have faculty meetings? Once a month, those faculty meetings that Mike says,
Well, nobody will be there.
including you, okay? And we always get focused on what we got going on there. Make sure that at some point in time, you talk to your other stakeholders. Who hears more than anything about what's going on in the school?
Children.
Who?
The students?
Community, who in the community though? Who in your school? Who had, first of all, who comes to those faculty meetings? That's it.
The faculty,
Teachers, that's right, who doesn't come to that faculty meeting?
parents,
Who else doesn't come?
Students.
Students, who else doesn't come? Custodians, CEP.
Employees.
Transportation, all those people that hear everything that's going on. So we need to make sure that all of our stakeholders, not just those people who show up in the faculty meeting, all of our stakeholders know what our protocol is when we hear a threat. Okay? And that's important. That's important because it gets shuffled down. If you're in a large district, let's say Jefferson County has 450, 500 buses. That bus driver hears a threat, turns it into the transportation director. How long do you think it takes to get back to school?
a month.
Exactly. So let's be sure we have a protocol. I don't know what else this might
Dale, I might know it, Dale told me he's former teacher, because of that. I'm an SRO. I'll tell you that, I've been in law enforcement for 35 plus years now. I'm old as well, I'm not the big one that's right. But, but I've been doing it a long time, but Dale and I started working together, I'll tell you a little bit, I am married to a school teacher. I was a kindergarten teacher for 15 plus years, and finally got promoted out of kindergarten. I don't know what took us so long to get out of kindergarten. I thought that was just a one-year deal. Yeah, but for some reason it took her 15 years to get out of kindergarten. But she loves, that's what she likes, little kid. I thought that I can handle it. Driving me at knees all the time. But she does that. I got a son-in-law, school teacher, both of my two daughters that work in the school system. But I got a little background in school stuff. I worked as an SRO very early on in my career. I got promoted, moved all around our department, did a lot of other things, and I come back and spent the latter part of my career as the SRO supervisor for Decatur City Schools, where I met your sister, Mr. Aikman. We worked together a little. So when I start talking about people today, I won't mention their names, don't shout them out, okay? But you'll know who they are when I start telling them. But, so I got that, so I come back as SRO supervisor, and when they brought me back, I thought, hey, I understand the school stuff. My wife's teacher, I got a lot of friends who are in the school system. I understand the school stuff, I got it down. And so I've been the SRO supervisor about a week, and had a student make a threat at one of my high schools. I'm meeting with high school principal and a counselor, and we're talking about this student, and they finally let me and say, hey, we think this kid's a threat to our school, and we want him out of here. Now, well, I would agree with you, he's a threat, and he doesn't need to be in our school. And I said, good, we're glad to hear that. Would you mind, this is when I learned my first lesson, that what I learned was that school system, school board, Department of Education, really, really, really love acronyms. Okay? Y'all create groups of people just so that you can give them an acronym name. Okay? Dale and I work for the Safe Council.
Which stands for Securing Alabama's Facilities of Education. They just have to make that up.
But so I get that, and this is where I learned my lesson. I said, well, good, since you agree with us, would you mind signing off on this SIR form?
Anybody know what SIR means? Good. You would be
Yeah, I get
shocked how.
answers, and a lot of times when I say that, people just look at me like, well, it's a SIR form.
Well, we've called it SIR so long now that people don't know what that acronym stands for.
But anyways, they sign that SIR form over to me, and they slide it over there, and I sign it down in the bottom where it said LEA. And they very quickly smacked my hand and told me that I was another. You know? And because my first year as AP, what's an LEA? I pick on people too, by the way, y'all. No, ma'am, it's not. It's a law enforcement agency.
You
That's
were
what
right.
that's what, on that point, that's what a lot of people don't understand, and especially in education, is that law enforcement, we really, really love acronyms too, okay? But sometimes our acronyms, just as in that situation with LEA, mean two totally different things. We're speaking two different languages. So I always tell principals and assistant principals, if you ever stand out in the hall, talking to your SRO, and he's just standing there smiling and nodding, it's because he ain't got a clue clue what you're talking about. Okay? Your 504 and IEP and all these other things. Yes, ma'am, that sounds good to me. Yeah, he'll really know. But just understand that our communication is stuff that we have to work on. Because sometimes we don't understand each other. And that, now I talk about when that light clicks, if y'all get an opportunity to go to Castro, I really encourage you to do it. It's not just for SROs, because we actually now offer and have for many, many years an active shooter course, okay? That we let primarily administrators go through. You go through it when you win. Okay? Dr. Rhoda, I'll let you just give me the commercial for the active shooter course.
So when they do the active shooter, they bring in some young people, because that's typically who does it, and they give them basically a modified weapon that shoots something called simulation, or simulation, and they're basically like a paintball kind of deal, but they're small like bullets, and they actually enter the school and move throughout the school as if they were going to conduct this school shooting, and they train you how the emergency response team will actually enter the building and seek out those individuals and how they will handle them. And they allow the administrators or the team members to be a part of that. And they put you in the military style diamond formation. I don't know if they still do that.
They do single man now.
Single man. So they change it all the time as tactical training changes, they train it. So it's not just research-based or it's industry standard. So whatever the standard is currently in law enforcement, that's what they train you in, and you go room by room or by hall, and that's why the inside and the school maps and where people are and the camera system and all of that is important, because they can be directed to where that intruder is and they can utilize that situation. So they want the school officials to be a part of it so that they understand what's going on from that command center, how they would handle and neutralize that system. And it was probably one of the most eye-opening experiences that I've ever been a part of, because you have no idea, even if you know it's a training, but when you got those goggles on, that helmet on, and you're going through with that weapon, it's terrifying. And so you suddenly have a connection to these guys, because resource officers work side by side with administrators. They become your best friend. And you know that will be your best friend handling his children, as they're his children too. You may see them as people that arrest you or throw you in jail or whatever, but they see the children as their children too. And that is your friend saving your children. So it's a very powerful and emotionally evoking experience that they're there to do that. And so it helps you work better with them as you're trying to figure out what you would do if that situation occurred. And when you look at some of these other instances around the country where the SROs or some of those folks don't respond, it's hard for them and it's hard for us, because we know that we do it very differently in Alabama. They go to it.
Thanks, sir. I'll make sure you report that. That's worse than I ever did.
And by the way, you're in the role of that first responder. And I'll go ahead and tell them now, they don't let me go through it anymore. And that's simulation, and those are wax bullets, and they hurt. And the reason they don't let me go through it anymore, last time we do that training, and it's the same scenarios a lot of times, and they changed it up a lot. The last time I went through it, you went in and I had that, as Mr. Lowe said, had that, all of that garb on, and I had that on, and I was supposed to go get the perpetrator at the end of the hall. They put you in the typical school, which a lots of active shooter things now are in closed up schools. This is an active school that still has stuff all over. It makes a difference. So as I was going down, supposedly the perpetrator was at the end of the hall. There was somebody laying on the floor that had been shot. There was a garbage can. There was a vending machine. Just typical school. Okay. As I go down the first time, my heart's pumping 100,000 miles an hour. As I go by, the guy that's laying down jumps up and shoots me in the back. They said, "Let's go through it again." I said, "Okay, I'll be better this time." My heart's still pumping. So I'm going down through there. I check the guy real good. I go down a little bit further. Somebody jumps out of the garbage can and shoots me in the back. So the third time I went in, I shot everybody in the back.
Easier that way, right?
You live it now, you only get 3 bullets. That's right. But he got, we had to change our name to call today. But I always tell people, I was an active shooter instructor for my department. I've been through hundreds of active shooter drills. We had a training building, we called in every night. When I got
Shoot
training
everybody.
building, that's what it.
Kill them all. That
I
God
was
sort them
doing
out.
that for 1 year. And that's when my life clicked. Because I smelled gunpowder and heard gunshots in the hallway of a school. And I realized then that, hey, me and that assistant principal that I bump heads with every day, we're really in that building for the same purpose. He's there to provide an education in a safe environment. I'm there to provide a safe environment where they can have an education. We're both looking to get the same thing at the end of the day. And when that happens, we start working together, things start working a lot smoother in your school. I'm hoping my clicker will work on the way down here.
All right, so y'all are about to go, what y'all got coming up November 11th?
Veterans Day.
Veterans Day, and I know I ask that all the time, because I told somebody the other day, I said, in one where we were training the other day, I said, y'all coming up with Thanksgiving break, not too far off, and they said, don't forget Veterans Day, we got.
There we go.
So here, let's look at this video.
The Sears Home perfect bag for back to school.
These calculators help me stay organized.
These headphones are just ready for studying.
Just look here, over here.
This jacket is a real must-have.
You can't come and see it right now. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in our class. It's called pencils too.
These pistols, they can be a real lifesaver.
And I would never vote to stay in touch with my mom.
As you can see, that's put out by St. Luke Farm.
Can't do this.
It's a drug prevention, but Mike and I like to use it just for awareness. I'll tell you, as you probably already figured out, Mike and I like to put up, but that's the most somber, serious moment you'll have. I'm a grandparent, and it breaks my heart that my grandkids now have to have that kind of attitude, because that's kind of the thought process, though. I tell people all the time, you know, you folks know it. Our problem a lot of times is not student problem, what is it? Parent problem,
Parent
that's
problem,
right.
yeah.
But you know what? As a coach, we used to say, he's rough, he's a thug and all that, but you know what? They're my thug. And that's the same thing with your kids, okay? But whatever their problems are, they're yours, okay? You have to take care of that. And I know that that's what we have. I know that we're not trained to do all those kind of things, but when they're in there, we have to create that culture. You hear that all the time in that curriculum and instruction, right? We have to create a culture of teaching and learning. We have to create that culture of school safety, okay? And that is mentioning it, keeping on top, and making sure it's a first priority for your kid. We got another one right here.
We do. I got a couple more housekeeping things we forgot to get with y'all
Okay.
this morning. One, we're a very interactive class, okay? Which means I expect y'all to talk back to me. If you don't start talking back to me when we ask questions, I'll come sit down next to somebody and judge you, and Dale will start humming the Jeopardy music and all this stuff. So it just works better if y'all just talk to us all along. And Dale and I will talk over the top of each other. Okay,
All the time.
I'll just tell you, Dale's old,
Yeah.
and he forgets stuff all the time, so I have to remind him. And so sometimes I just have to interrupt him when he's in the middle of something and get him, you know,
And
so.
by the way, our wives call us work wives, so, because we've been together doing this for about 5 years. So just don't worry about it when you go on.
Let's watch another little short video.
The signs that I could be in a school near you. I told others, but they didn't believe me. I took my time finding who I'd take out. I stole my uncle's gun. But I'm not going to keep thinking the things that I think.
There is no profile for a school shooter. He may be around you. He may be close to you. If you know anything about
they do great things. And the reason that, what did you notice about that? Who was speaking? Students.
Student.
You need to understand, I know this is a shock to you, but sometimes students don't listen to us. But they listen to their peers. This one actually was put out by Murphy High School in Mobile and won a national award. So it's really good stuff, but be sure you get students on your side. All right, let's talk about, everybody know about this one, right? What is this?
I can't even.
Talk to me about this. This has been in place 5 years now, okay?
Y'all gotta get active, I'm starting to move.
I always tell them, one at a time.
What is it?
Can't see it. Well, we weren't supposed to know because we parents.
Hiking awareness. When do we use hiking awareness in Alabama, especially in the Birmingham area?
Weather.
Well, when James Spam's on there and he's just got his suspenders on, we better be on hiking awareness, right? Bottom line, because nowadays, we have technology that we know when those tornadoes are coming in, right? So if they're coming in at 6 o'clock in the morning, what might we do?
Oh, get
And
prepared.
Be
if-
prepared.
And if they're gonna be out by 8 o'clock, what might we do?
Delay.
Delay school. If they're coming in at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Early
Let them out
dismissal.
early.
But what are we gonna do, no matter what time we got to school and we leave school, and we're gonna do it at the same time, every day?
What did you say? I heard it. Eat lunch.
I don't care if we want to go to school at 10:15, at 10:27, kindergarten better be in line at that lunchroom.
So understand, heightened awareness
That's true.
gives you all kinds of capability to be
They
prepared for
showed
everything.
feeding.
So that principal may go on and say, teachers, we got some weather coming in, be on heightened awareness, we may have to adjust it. That just lets you know. Heightened awareness may be all kinds of other things. But the one that we want to talk about real serious, just for a minute, is that one in the middle. What is that?
Some premier.
What did that used to be?
Says secure
What did
perimeter.
it actually, well, actually, we got lockdown, so what did that used to be? Lockdown was closed. Soft lockdown and modified lockdown.
But
Okay.
y'all were all right the first time, because everybody always just heard lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you go from soft lockdown and modified lockdown, or whatever, and like Mike said, what do they hear? Lockdown, okay? So that not only says, but look, secure perimeter means there's danger outside of our building, somewhere in the neighborhood or something. So we're still teaching and learning, locking doors and limiting movement, okay? That's the
Right.
difference, man. We don't call it soft lockdown or modified lockdown anymore, because trust me, Fox 6 News will be over here and say they were on modified lockdown. Perfect example, this year, this school year, and by the way, educators are pretty good at that. It's harder and harder to get other entities talking about it, especially older people, okay? And I'll say that about us older teachers, educators, veteran, there you go, that's the word. It's because we're so used to that, okay? And so, this year at Tuscumbia City Schools, I think it was, had a secure perimeter situation outside.
Had a police chase that ended very close to, got bailed out, already run around the neighborhood, police chase, and good neighborhood on foot.
They did the right thing. Tuscumbia City Schools said, we're on secure perimeter. They interviewed the police chief at Tuscumbia, and he said, we were on the soft lockdown. No, you wasn't. We don't use lockdown unless it's a lockdown or lockdown 3, okay?
Okay.
If you notice now in the state language, there is no code red anymore. Code yellow. None of you are probably old enough to remember.
We don't do no secret squirrel stuff.
Y'all remember the secret squirrel stuff? Please bring the red folder to the office. By the way, and we used to say, in fact, did you look at, St. Louis?
St. Louis the other day, I tell you, I was there. Do you know how that school went to lockdown? They were a performing arts magnet school. They didn't say lockdown. They got on the intercom and said, Miles Davis is in the building.
Wow.
Okay.
See, I
Code words.
went to the office before to get his,
Autograph, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
He's in the building, I want an autograph.
I know
They knew
that's
what
right.
it was.
I want to hear some
and lots
music.
of other states have it got slower. If there's one person, if there's an active shooter in your building, who's the one person that knows there's an active shooter in your building?
Oh, yeah.
Students.
The active shooter. We're not fooling, we use plain language. If there's a custodian, if there's a sub, if there's somebody from central office, we use plain language to try to make sure we make everybody aware. We can
Okay.
look at all of these historical events, Sandy Hook, all kinds of them. lots of them were the substitutes that didn't know procedure, okay? So we use plain language. Okay, so that's, y'all have already hit the game on that. You'd be surprised at some of them that aren't. Now, you gonna have to climb the steps of them.
I'm gonna, yeah, I gotta get over here. I may have to seats from over here.
Some of the things we're gonna look at today, but while we do the grade assessment, the important elements, first of all, we got counselors in here.
Raise your hands.
Raise your hand, counselor. By the way, Mike picked some counselors, so just be aware of that, okay? We're gonna look at the inquiry step, with use of the protocol, we're gonna look at a couple of scenarios, then we'll take a group test, okay? And it'll be an oral test, and everybody has to answer. And you'll do fine. If you don't do fine, if you don't pass the test together, we start back at slide 1. How many slides we got?
93.
93 slides. So just so you'll know, we'll be okay, all right? All right, so that's what we're gonna look at. Yes, ma'am. Sure.
So we have, does everyone understand why you're here?
We'll actually
We're
talk.
gonna go over that.
We'll talk about that in just a minute. We're gonna talk, we'll get to that, tell them why. So let's look at the fact.
We're gonna look here a little bit about
sure.
evolution, school safety. Dale told y'all we're gonna talk about history and stuff. I like to talk about history because I'm one of those people that I think we learn from history. That's the way we don't make our mistakes of the past, is we look at what we did in the past, and we don't do the same things again, okay? So, with that, the first SRO program in the United States actually started in the late 1950s in Flint, Michigan. They actually put police officers in their
Imagine that.
schools and started working.
That's a
Now, they
black
weren't SROs
community.
as we know them today, but that's where we started, and we changed from that. And but then August the 1st, 1966, had an incident at the University of Texas in Austin, known as the Texas Tower shooting. Had a military veteran climb the tower at the University of Texas, barricaded himself in, and started shooting people. Okay? And always, if I got any hunters, football coaches, anything in the room, anybody that likes to shoot? Yeah. This guy was shooting people 500 yards away.
500 yards.
That's 5 football fields.
5 football
He had
fields.
barricaded himself in this tower, they couldn't get to him.
That was a sniper, wasn't
Okay? They eventually, police officers who responded to that, patrol officers on the ground, responded with the weapon of their days. They had 38 revolvers and 12-gauge shotguns. They were useless against him on the ground. Okay? Took them a long, long time to finally breach the door, and I got out there where he was and ended up killing him and stopping the shooting. But he killed a number of people for that. So out of that, we developed SWAT teams. Okay? And a lot of places, there were some versions of SWAT teams around the United States, but at that point they became very popular because we said, we've got to have people who are specially armed and specially trained to go get these people. We started dealing with barricaded gunmen. And so that's what we did. But along with SWAT teams, there became specific rules about how we could use them and when you use them and all of that. But then on March 24th, 1998, we had a shooting at a middle school in Jonesboro, Arkansas. 2 middle school students, an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old. We'll talk about them more today. But then the one that everybody knows about, April the 20th, 1999. Columbine, Colorado. Okay? Had a shooting there. How many of y'all know that on April the 20th, 1999, there was an SRO on duty inside Columbine High School that did exactly what he was trained to do? In 1999, we were trained to leave the building, set up a perimeter, and call for the SWAT team. Because we've never heard the term active shooter. We dealt with barricaded gunmen.
And again, that was all based on the Texas Tower shooting. That's why they formed it.
Okay? So that SRO did exactly that. Lots of law enforcement started responding. They set up their perimeter, continued to establish their perimeter to contain it. Okay? 45 minutes later, the SWAT team arrived. And I'll just tell y'all, 45 minutes is an outstanding time to get a SWAT team assembled and to a location. I was on our SWAT team in Decatur. If I could have all of my people in 45 minutes anywhere in the city of Decatur, I thought we were doing fantastic.
So what was happening on those 45 minutes?
it? Somebody getting shot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So out of that, we changed, we said, that can't work anymore. We went to what Dr. Roderman told, we went to the diamond formation, 4 men. Hey, takes 4 men to entry. Y'all are lucky here, you're in town, okay, you got an SRO in the building all the time. But how long do you get 4 here?
How long would it take? And you're pretty close. How long? Give me an estimate on the fourth law enforcement person, whether it's Midfield, whether it's whatever. 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
Just so you'll
When they
know,
eat.
statistics and research shows that for every minute a shooter is unimpeded, four people lose their life.
Yeah.
So we're trying to buy time. We're trying to get there as quickly as possible. So.
And that diamond formation was a hard, fast rule.
That's right.
You
You
could
couldn't go
not
in.
enter until number 4 arrived.
So they got that down to 3.
Then we cut it down to 2, and we kept saying, well, we still having to wait on number 2.
So
What's your job now, sir?
what's your job now? Eliminate the threat.
What we
Go.
call now, we advance to the threat. Okay? Their job is to go stop the problem wherever it's at.
That's kind of important for you to know. Because, where you're here. If you're shot and you're laying in the office and he comes in and you're laying on the floor bleeding, what's he gonna do?
Help her.
What?
Help her.
Step over.
Stepping over and going on.
And that's kind of important for your faculty to know, because that second, third wave might want to take care of it. But then you try to get that, what? She said, help.
Help her.
Oh, no, help. I thought you said step over.
Stepping over you.
No.
Going on.
Help.
Oh.
Now,
As a matter of fact, Mike,
I will ask you to do something for me, though, if I'm that first responder. And it's gonna sound a little cold, because it actually is. But if you're laying there in the hall and you've got a bullet hole in you and you're bleeding, I need you to stick a finger in the hole. Okay? Because I need you slow bleeding now. Long enough that when I get there, I can ask you a question. And the question is not, are you okay? Are you gonna make it?
Where to shoot at?
Where did he go?
we're trying to get to them as quickly as possible. That's
He
why,
goes
Okay.
stop the threat.
that's why we're trying to train on hard corners now. And you know what I mean by hard corners? In other words, we teach to
Maybe
go
not.
in and barricade the room, and hard corner means.
That's why a lot of them homeschool.
Your classroom doors have windows in them? Okay? And so, and I know we all try to cover our windows, we go to lockdown and all that, but I just think sometimes that happens, sometimes don't. If we're excited, we can get the rope, the cover, blah, blah, whatever. A hard corner, we had some students in Parkland, Florida, got killed in a locked room. He never entered that room, but when he looked through the window of that classroom door, there were students sitting out in the middle of the floor. He shot through the window and shot them.
Still never went in. Well, this is a good time for me to do that commercial too. Just so you'll know, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, and we go through all kinds of new fads on it. But the bottom line is, we'll talk about all this study as long as we talk about it. Bottom line is, only one school shooter that we know of, and St. Louis has not been clear yet, okay? Because they, all kinds of different information. Only one school shooter that we know of before that has ever breached a locked exterior door. And that was Sandy Hook. He semi-breached it, and that was Sandy Hook. And the reason he breached it is he shot that window out, just like your doors. He shot the window outside and reached in and hit the panic button. And that's the way he went in that locked door.
But to my knowledge, we have never had a school attacker breach an interior locked door.
Door.
I don't know what your policy is, but let me tell you, folks,
They're locked.
when you start telling teachers that, because as a principal, I was one of those, I put those rocks in the door more than anybody and all those things. I trust me. But if when you tell a teacher and you start telling them that research shows that no school shooter has ever breached an interior locked door, that starts making a little difference.
Yeah.
Okay? That starts making a little difference. And that's the fad that we want to go through. So anyway,
So I put this picture up here, and I can't believe that worked from down here.
I can't.
But this is a picture from a surveillance camera inside Marjorie Stoneman Douglas School in Parkland, Florida. And I always put that up there because somebody says, how many different uniforms do you see in that picture?
A bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A bunch.
So, what does that mean?
What's that tell you?
And everybody got different jobs.
So what
What's the different uniforms tell you? Different agencies.
Different agencies.
And so we try to push right here and I didn't necessarily notice it because I wasn't paying attention. We tried to push wayfinding. Y'all know what wayfinding is? What's wayfinding?
It's where you have, sometimes about putting, colors on the floors, so, or the ceilings, so that first responders know where to go, because they don't know, like the lanes, they don't know, in the fifth grade hall.
That's right. I would have never known where the back door is. I'd have never known that. Look, when you go in a hospital that area and you say, I gotta go to X-ray, what do they tell you to do?
Follow green.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Look, and there's all kinds of different ways, and it looks like y'all are already talking about that. You don't have to paint line.
Somebody's school got that.
Paint a chair rail down there, but what you don't want to do is say, tell that first responder that has never, ever been in your building, you don't want to say Miss Johnson's room 101. You want to say Blue Hall, third building.
Mm-hmm.
He told me to go to the back building this morning, I just stood there and stared at it.
So
I
understand,
didn't know what he was talking about.
but that's something that doesn't cost a lot of money, and it makes a difference, and that's not just for law enforcement, that could be for EMT, could be for anybody. The first, somebody that's never been in your building, trying to quickly direct them to wherever that crisis situation is.
And I'm gonna tell you, if you have an incident happen at your school, it's not just gonna be your SRO that comes here. It's not just gonna be Midfield Police Department.
Right.
Okay, you're gonna get all of Jefferson County, you're gonna get Midfield, Fairfield, Birmingham, everybody. Uvalde, Texas, which has a population, I think I read, of 13,000 people. Okay, small town. Okay? 396 police officers were on the scene before it was over with.
How many of those police officers you think had ever been in that school before?
Probably
Two.
none of them.
So, again, wayfinding is making sure those first responders know exactly how to get to quickly, okay, so they can do their job.
So let's talk a little bit now about a little more recent history. Oxford, Michigan, November 30th, 2021, at 12:51 afternoon that day, the 911 center in Oxford, Michigan received the first of over 100 phone calls reporting a shooting in the hallway of the school. What had happened earlier that morning, a student had been caught by a teacher drawing some stuff on a geometry review. Pictures, he drew a picture of a gun, a person who had been shot and bleeding, the laughing, crying emoji, the bullet, the word things like, the thoughts won't stop, blood's everywhere, help me, were wrote on this piece of paper. So this teacher rightly took that up, went to the counselor, they carried it off. What a lot of people don't know is the day before this incident, this same student had been caught by a different teacher researching on his school-issued device, by the way, how to buy ammunition. Okay?
Yeah,
So,
them red flags.
good high school with Drake? Well, I'm gonna pick on you because I know you know, I know you have, okay? So, I'm the student parent. You call me down to school today, okay? So let's bump this note into, and I'll show y'all a minute, okay? We're gonna have a discussion, all right? What are you gonna tell me?
So what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? No, that's good, no, okay? But guess what? I'm not gonna take it home, I'm gonna leave you here. That's what the parent told the principal there.
As an administrator, I didn't know that was an option.
I didn't either.
Okay?
Because I would have said, either you taking him home